9-hour spinal surgery in Seattle, and the first thing I saw on my phone was 73 missed calls. My vision was still blurred from anesthesia when I pressed play on my father's voicemail. His voice was steady, almost upbeat. "We sold your condo to help pay for your sister's wedding. You were under, so we signed the paperwork for you. It all worked out." Just like that, $568,000 gone. Vanessa's wedding was 4 weeks away. I could barely move my legs. They didn't feel like they belonged to me. But lying there in that recovery room, staring at the ceiling tiles above me, something inside me shifted. I made one phone call, and what happened at that wedding, 200 guests will never forget. Before I take you there, if this story pulls you in, consider subscribing, only if you truly want to see how it ends. And tell me where you're listening from. I read every comment. Now let me take you back. 7 weeks before that surgery, I was sitting in my neurologist's office in Seattle, hearing the words I'd waited 3 years for. "We have a date." Herniated discs, L4 and L5. The pain had followed me since I was 29. Some mornings I couldn't get out of bed. Other days, I forced myself upright because deadlines don't care about your spine. March 15th. 9 hours in surgery, 6 weeks of recovery. Relief was finally coming. That night I called my parents. My hands were shaking. Not from fear, but from something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. "Mom, I got the surgery date." "That's nice, sweetheart," Lorraine said, distracted. I could hear Vanessa laughing in the background. "When is it?" "March 15th. I'll need someone to drive me home afterward." There was a pause. "March? Calla, that's right in the middle of wedding prep. You know Vanessa's getting married in April." "I know, but the surgery—" "You'll figure it out. You always do." Then muffled voices. "Vanessa needs me. We're choosing centerpieces. I'll call you later." She hung up before I could answer. I sat there with the phone still in my hand. I wasn't surprised. That was the worst part. When I graduated college, they missed it. Vanessa had an audition for a regional lifestyle campaign that day. She didn't even get it. When I bought my Capitol Hill condo at 27, my father's first response wasn't congratulations. It was, "Why didn't you help your sister instead? She needs money more than you need another property." 32 years. I had learned not to expect much from them, but I had never quite learned how to stop hoping. That was my mistake. Let me explain. Vanessa, she's 28. She's been calling herself a lifestyle influencer for 4 years. About 12,000 followers, most of them suspiciously inactive. She's never kept a job longer than 3 months. When she turned 21, my parents bought her a car. When I turned 21, I was working double shifts at a restaurant to cover tuition. "Calla can take care of herself," my mother always said. "Vanessa needs more support." Support. That's what they called it. The week before my surgery, I handled everything on my own. I hired a home care aide for the first 2 weeks. I meal prepped. I moved a bed into my living room so I wouldn't have to climb stairs. Not once did my parents offer to help. But they called 3 separate times asking if I could contribute more to the wedding fund. "It's going to be stunning," my mother said during the last call. "The venue alone at the Four Seasons Seattle is $80,000. And Vanessa found the most incredible gown, $28,500. She deserves it." "That's a lot of money, Mom." "Ethan's family is very established. We can't look small." Ethan Caldwell, Vanessa's fiancé. I'd met him twice. Polite, quiet, a little too trusting. At the time, I didn't realize how much that mattered. Ethan's parents sat on the board of a respected regional bank. They had money, real money. I already gave you $42,000 for the engagement party, I reminded my mother quietly. That was months ago, Calla. This is different. I have surgery in 5 days. I can't. There was a pause. Then her voice hardened. Fine. We'll figure it out without you, like we always do. She hung up. And like always, I stood there staring at my phone, then around my Capitol Hill condo. 8 years of saving. 8 years of overtime, side contracts, missed vacations, late nights when my back was already screaming. That place wasn't just an address. It was proof. Proof that I existed without their permission. I had no idea how expensive that proof was about to become. People have asked me why I cared so much about that condo. $568,000 in Seattle doesn't buy a mansion. It barely gets you 800 square feet. 1 bedroom, a narrow kitchen, a balcony just big enough for a chair and a cup of coffee. But that condo was never about square footage. When I was 12, my father once told me I wasn't the pretty one in the family. That's okay, he'd said, like he was offering comfort. You're the smart one. You'll just have to work harder. Work harder. That became my religion. I worked harder in school. Scholarships covered most of college. What they didn't cover, I paid for myself. I worked harder at my job, climbing from junior developer to senior software engineer in 6 years. I worked harder than anyone I knew, and at 27, I walked into a bank in Seattle and signed papers that made me a homeowner. No cosigner, no family check, no safety net. For the first time in my life, I owned something that was entirely mine. That condo held 8 years of my life inside its walls. Every sunrise on that tiny balcony, every promotion, every paycheck deposited with pride. It wasn't just an investment. It was evidence. Evidence that I had value, even if my own family refused to see it. And there was something else they didn't know. 5 years earlier, my parents had almost lost their house in Bellevue. $212,000 in mortgage arrears, foreclosure notices, midnight phone calls filled with panic. I gave them $42,000. Every dollar I had saved toward upgrading to a larger place. We'll pay you back, my father promised. They never did. They never mentioned it again. So when I checked into surgery on March 15th, I had no idea my parents had finally found a way to take the rest. I remember the fluorescent lights in the pre-op room, the nurse adjusting my IV, the anesthesiologist explaining the procedure. Count backward from 10. I made it to 7. 9 hours later, I woke up in recovery. Everything hurt. My back, my throat from the breathing tube, even my eyelids felt heavy. A nurse smiled gently. Surgery went well. How are you feeling? Like I got hit by a truck, I whispered. She laughed softly and handed me my phone. Your family's been calling a lot. I squinted at the screen. 73 missed calls, 47 text messages. My first thought was that someone had died. My second thought was that something had gone wrong with Vanessa's wedding. I opened my father's voicemail, sent 4 hours into my surgery. His tone was calm, almost cheerful. I would later learn they had been planning this for weeks, lining up a cash buyer, drafting documents, timing the closing to coincide with the day I'd be unconscious. Calla, honey, it's Dad. So, we had a family discussion. We found a motivated cash buyer for your condo. Closed today. Since you were under, we signed the final paperwork for you. The funds are going toward Vanessa's wedding. She deserves something beautiful. And you weren't really using the place much anyway, being single and all. You'll understand. Call us when you wake up. Love you. I replayed it. Then again. $568,000. gone. By the time April arrived, the wedding wasn't just an event, it was a performance. The Caldwells moved in circles where appearances mattered. Board members, investors, donors who measured worth in spectacle. When Margaret Caldwell suggested the Four Seasons Ballroom, my father agreed immediately, not because he could comfortably afford it, but because he couldn't afford to look small. What started as a celebration quietly turned into a financial arms race. The venue alone was $80,000. The gown, $28,500. Rehearsal dinner, engagement party, custom floral installations flown in from California. By the time the final invoices were tallied, the number hovered just under $568,000. It wasn't love they were funding. It was prestige. The nurse must have seen something change in my face. "Ma'am, do you need more pain medication?" I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stared at the ceiling and focused on breathing. In, out. In, out. Something inside me hardened. Not rage, not hysteria. Clarity. Cold and precise. I knew exactly what I needed to do. And it began with one phone call. Not to my parents. 2 hours after I woke up, I called my father. My hands were steady. My voice was calm. The morphine dulled the physical pain, but what steadied me was something else. The kind of clarity that comes when you finally see people for who they are. He picked up on the second ring. "Calla, you're awake. How was the surgery?" "You sold my condo." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Oh, you heard the message while you were under," my father said slowly. "Well, yes, we had to move quickly. The buyer was ready." "You forged my signature." Another pause, longer this time. "Forged is a harsh word, Calla. We simply facilitated the transaction. You would have agreed anyway." "Would I?" "Of course. Family supports family. Vanessa needed it." I let the silence stretch before I answered. "What Vanessa needed," I said carefully, "was $568,000 that didn't belong to her." "That's not fair," he snapped, slipping into that familiar defensive tone. "You have a strong career. You'll earn it back. Vanessa and Ethan are building a life together. This wedding establishes them socially. It's an investment in the family." "Dad," I said evenly, "what you did is a felony." Silence. Forgery, fraud, theft. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. "You're speaking to your father like I'm some criminal," he shot back. "After everything we've done for you? Feeding you? Housing you?" "You stopped housing me when I was 18. I've paid my own way ever since." "So this is how you repay us?" "Repay you for what?" I asked. "For selling my home while I was unconscious on an operating table?" He sputtered. I could hear Lorraine's voice in the background, sharp, urgent, panicked. "Calla, you're emotional," he muttered. "We'll talk when you've calmed down." He started to disconnect. "Dad," I said quietly. He paused. "You're going to regret this." The line went dead. He had no idea how true that was. 20 minutes later, my phone rang again. "Calla Marie Monroe." My mother's voice was ice. "What did you say to your father?" "The truth." She let out a short, bitter laugh. "The truth? The truth is that we sacrificed everything for this family, and you're lying in a hospital bed threatening us. You stole my home. We borrowed it. There's a difference. You forged my signature. You sold my property. That's not borrowing. Stop being dramatic." Her tone shifted instantly, from defensive to wounded. The pivot I'd seen my whole life. Do you have any idea how stressed I've been planning this wedding for months? Your father's blood pressure is through the roof. And now you're making things worse. I closed my eyes. This script was old. Mom, I said slowly, I just had major spinal surgery. I can barely feel my legs. And you're telling me I'm the one making things worse? Vanessa is getting married, Calla. This is the most important day of her life. Why can't you just be happy for her? I was happy for her before she took $568,000 from me. She didn't take anything. We made a family decision. Without me, you were unavailable. I was unconscious, she huffed. Same thing. You would have said no anyway. You've always been selfish. Selfish. 32 years of working, saving, asking for nothing. And I was selfish. Mom, I said softly, do you know who owns the house you're standing in right now? There was a beat of silence. What? The house in Bellevue. The one you and Dad live in. Do you know who owns it? A confused laugh. We do, obviously. Are you sure? Calla, what are you talking about? You're on pain medication. You're not making sense. I'll see you at the wedding, Mom. I hung up. 3 weeks. That's all I needed. The third call I made was to the only person in my family who had ever truly seen me, Evelyn Harper, my father's older sister. She picked up on the first ring. Calla, sweetheart, I heard. Her voice was warm, but underneath it, anger. Stephen called me earlier, trying to frame this as some kind of family investment. I told him he'd lost his mind. I let out a slow breath. So you know. I know my brother is reckless, she said heavily, and I warned him years ago. I told him the way he treated you would come back to him. He didn't listen. Evelyn was 65, retired CPA, the only person in my family who had ever looked at me and seen someone worth respecting. Aunt Evelyn, I said, I need your help. Anything. Can you keep a secret for 3 weeks? There was a pause. Then, carefully, what are you planning? I didn't tell her everything, just enough. The surgery timeline, the wedding date, the call I was about to make to my attorney. When I finished, the line went quiet. Calla, she said finally, are you certain? Once you do this, there's no going back. They may never forgive you. I almost laughed. They sold my home while I was fighting through surgery. Forgiveness stopped being an option the moment that happened. She was silent for a long moment. Then she asked, what do you need from me? I'm going to give you an envelope, I said. Keep it somewhere safe. If anything happens, if they try anything else, bring it to the wedding. The word hung there between us. The wedding? Evelyn repeated quietly. I'll be there, I said, but I want someone on my side. She exhaled slowly. You've always been the strongest one in this family, Calla. Don't let them break you. They won't, I promised, and I meant it. There was something I hadn't told anyone. Back in 2021, I got a call from an old college friend who worked at a bank in Washington. Not just any bank, the one servicing my parents' mortgage. Her voice had been low, almost cautious. Calla, I probably shouldn't be saying this, but your parents are about to lose their house. They're $212,000 behind. Foreclosure in 60 days. $212,000. And this was after the $42,000 I'd already given them the year before. Money they swore was just to help them stabilize. Instead, they'd fallen even deeper. I remember sitting on my condo floor that night, staring at the wall. The same parents who skipped my graduation, who dismissed every accomplishment, who treated me like background noise. They were about to be homeless. I had a choice. Let them fall? Let them face the consequences of decades of financial chaos? Or I called a real estate attorney in Seattle, Jonathan Reed. I told him exactly what I wanted. "You want to purchase your parents' debt," he said slowly, "and acquire the property without them knowing it's you." "Yes." "That's unconventional." "Can it be done?" "It can, through an LLC, anonymous ownership, legal, clean, invisible." 3 weeks later, I owned my parents' house in Bellevue through Somerset Property Holdings, LLC. They believed a faceless investment firm had rescued them. They signed a lease to rent the home they'd lived in for 20 years. They never knew their eldest daughter was their landlord. Every month, their rent payment landed in my account. They had no idea. And I didn't do it for revenge. Not then. I did it because, despite everything, I still loved them. I wanted them to have stability, even if they'd never given me any. But now, 4 years later, lying in a hospital bed after spinal surgery, listening to my father cheerfully describe selling my condo, that love reached its limit. 3 days after surgery, Jonathan came to see me in my hospital room. He was in his mid-40s, composed, steady, the kind of attorney who had seen every kind of family implosion. He set a thick folder on the bedside table. "I reviewed the documents from your condo sale," he said. "It's worse than I expected." "Tell me." "They used a forged power of attorney. The signature doesn't remotely match yours." He showed me the page. My name looked like it had been written by someone who'd only seen it once. "The notary stamp traces back to a man in Nevada who's been flagged before for rubber stamping documents without proper verification. Your father likely found him online. A federal offense," Jonathan added calmly. "Unfortunately, it happens." "Can we reverse the sale?" He shook his head. "The buyer is an innocent third party. They purchased in good faith. Unwinding it would take years, and there's no guarantee you'd recover the property." I let that sink in. $568,000. Gone. "You do have options," he continued. "You can press criminal charges, forgery, fraud, identity theft. Your parents could face serious prison time." "What else?" He pulled out another document. "The Bellevue property, the one held by Somerset Property Holdings, LLC." "My parents' house." "Your house," he corrected gently. "You still own it outright. And their lease," he checked the date, "expires April 19th, 1 week after the wedding." I did the math in my head. Vanessa's wedding, April 12th. Lease expiration, April 19th. 1 week later. Jonathan nodded slowly. "If you chose to serve notice to vacate, you could do so at any time. They'd have 30 days from service." 30 days. I stared at the ceiling. "There's something almost poetic about that timing," he said carefully. For the first time since I'd woken up from surgery, I smiled. "Draft the notice," I said. "I'll tell you when to serve it." 1 week before the wedding, Vanessa called. By then I was home, moving carefully with a cane. The pain was manageable. My head was clear. "Calla," she said, her voice dipped in syrup. "I heard you've been upsetting Mom and Dad." "Have I?" "They said you threatened them over some money thing." "Some money thing?" I let out a small laugh. "Vanessa, they sold my condo, the home I worked 8 years to buy." She dragged out her response. "Well, that was a family decision. You're single. You don't really need a place that big." "Well, it's 800 square feet." "Still, It's not like you have a husband or kids. I let the silence stretch between us. Vanessa, I asked quietly, did you know where the money came from? There was a beat. I don't get involved in financial stuff. That's between Mom and Dad. You knew. I didn't. Well, you suggested it, didn't you? And that's when the realization hit me like ice water. You told them I had the condo, I said quietly. You told them I was going into surgery. You knew I'd be under. That's not... Vanessa stumbled. I just mentioned you had assets and weren't really using them. It was just a suggestion. Mom and Dad made the decision. You aimed them at me like a weapon. You're being dramatic. Her voice sharpened instantly. You've always been jealous of me, Calla. You're 32 and alone. No one wants you. And now you're trying to sabotage my wedding because you can't stand seeing me happy. I closed my eyes. Breathe in, breathe out. I'll see you at the wedding, Vanessa. You better not cause a scene. I wouldn't dream of it. I ended the call. She had painted a target on my back. Now she was about to watch the arrow fly. The next evening, at exactly 7:43 p.m., Vanessa went public. Her Instagram story appeared with dramatic precision. A perfectly staged photo of her sitting in what looked like a bridal boutique, mascara streaked down her cheeks, lip trembling just enough. The caption read, "When someone in your own family is so jealous of your happiness that they try to destroy your wedding. My sister is threatening to ruin the most important day of my life. Just because she's alone and bitter doesn't mean she gets to steal my joy. Stay strong, Queen. Jealousy is ugly. Families should support you. Your sister sounds toxic. Cut her off." My phone started ringing almost immediately. Aunts, uncles, cousins, even women from my mother's charity committee. How could you, Calla? Vanessa is devastated. Why are you doing this to your family? Not one person asked for my side. Not one. I didn't respond. Instead, I screenshotted everything, calling me selfish, jealous, pathetic, every word. Bryce, my cousin, called, attempting to play mediator. Calla, can't you just apologize? For the family's sake? Apologize for what? For whatever you said that upset Vanessa. They sold my home while I was in surgery, I said flatly. They forged my signature. Silence. Well, he hesitated. There are always two sides to a story. I ended the call. Two sides. Everyone wanted balance. No one wanted truth. That was fine. In 2 weeks, they'd hear my side whether they liked it or not. I saved every screenshot into a folder on my laptop. Every accusation, every assumption, every cruel word. These will be useful, I murmured to myself. The wedding was 14 days away. The countdown had begun. Let me ask you something. If you were in my position, recovering from spinal surgery, $568,000 stolen, your entire family turning against you, what would you do? Sue immediately? Wait until the wedding? Or forgive and walk away? I'm genuinely curious. Now, let's continue. 2 days before the wedding was the rehearsal dinner. I didn't want to go. Every step still hurt. My back pulsed with every movement. But I needed to see the battlefield before the war. The dinner was at the Pink Door in Seattle. Private room upstairs, 25 guests, white tablecloths glowing under candlelight. Vanessa had proudly posted the cost on her wedding planning stories. $18,000 for one dinner. I arrived late, moving carefully with my cane. The room fell silent the moment I appeared in the doorway. My mother's eyes widened. My father's jaw tightened. Vanessa leaned toward Ethan and whispered something quickly. "Calla," Lorraine said first, recovering with a smile as sharp as glass. "We didn't expect you to make it, given your condition." "I wouldn't miss it," I replied evenly. I made my way to an empty seat at the far end of the table. Every step I took into that rehearsal dinner was deliberate. Every face in that room followed me. My father stood, lifting his glass. "Tonight, we celebrate family." He didn't look at me. "We celebrate sacrifice. Everything we've done has been for our children." Vanessa glowed beside Ethan. "This wedding represents love, commitment," my father continued. "So many people contributed to make it possible." His eyes flickered toward me, just for a second. "Family takes care of family." I raised my glass with the rest of them. I said nothing, but Ethan was watching me, not accusing, not hostile, curious, like he was trying to understand something that didn't quite fit. Vanessa leaned in and kissed his cheek, pulling his attention back where she wanted it. As coats were gathered and goodbyes exchanged, Vanessa approached me. "I'm surprised you showed up," she said, her smile thin and polished. "I have a gift for you," I replied calmly. "For the wedding." Her expression shifted. "A gift? You'll see it on Saturday." I left before she could ask anything else. My back was burning. It was worth it. April 12th, wedding day. The ceremony was held at the Four Seasons Hotel Seattle, in a manicured garden courtyard where every flower arrangement whispered money. White roses cascaded over iron arches. Crystal chandeliers hung from temporary pavilions. A string quartet played softly as guests filtered in. 200 invitations. Vanessa had insisted on that number. "Anything less looks cheap," she'd told my mother. 200 people to witness a perfect wedding paid for with stolen money. I arrived with Aunt Evelyn. She wore navy. I wore navy. Maybe coincidence, maybe not. "We're ready," she murmured as we walked through the entrance. In my clutch purse sat a simple manila envelope. Inside it, documents that would change everything. The chairs were arranged in curved rows facing a flower-draped altar. I chose a seat in the very last row, as far from the family section as possible. Evelyn sat beside me. Up front, my mother wore champagne silk, already dabbing at imaginary tears. My father stood tall in a tuxedo that probably cost more than my first car. And Vanessa walked down the aisle in $28,500 worth of white lace, veil trailing behind her like a cloud. She looked beautiful. She looked victorious. As she passed my row, her eyes met mine. A small, satisfied smile curved her lips. I smiled back. Ethan waited at the altar, nervous and hopeful. He had no idea who he had married into. When the officiant reached the traditional line, "If anyone objects, speak now or forever hold your peace," I felt heads turn. A few glances slid toward me. I didn't move. Vanessa's smile widened. Not yet, I thought. Not here. This moment deserved an audience. The ceremony was elegant, I'll give them that. Vows were exchanged, rings slipped into place. Ethan kissed his bride to applause from 200 guests. My mother wept. My father beamed. The picture of proud parents. From the back row, I watched with a steady expression and a quiet pulse. Evelyn squeezed my hand once. Afterward, guests moved to the reception tent, a massive white structure draped in ivory, chandeliers glowing overhead, a dance floor large enough for 50. The head table sat elevated on a platform like a stage, Vanessa and Ethan in the center, my parents flanking them. Royal positioning. I found my seat, Table 14, near the service entrance. The exile table. A great-uncle adjusting his hearing aids, a distant cousin already tipsy, and Evelyn, who had specifically requested to sit with me. "They've put you in Siberia," she muttered under her breath. I expected nothing less. Dinner was extravagant. Filet mignon, lobster tail, $300 bottles of wine, a towering cake that looked more like architecture than dessert. Vanessa laughed brightly at the head table, her hand constantly resting on Ethan's arm, claiming him, displaying him. My father tapped his glass. The room fell quiet. "Before the official toasts," he announced, swelling with pride, "I'd like to say a few words." Here we go. "This wedding represents everything our family stands for. Sacrifice, unity, love." He paused for effect. "So many people made today possible. Our wonderful daughter Vanessa, our new son Ethan, and his generous family." His gaze swept the room. It paused on me. "And everyone who contributed to making this day so special." Contributed. He actually said it. Evelyn's hand tightened around mine under the table. "Not yet. Almost," my father continued, voice thick with self-congratulation. "Raising 2 daughters has been the greatest privilege of my life." He turned toward Vanessa, eyes shining. "You have always been the light of this family. Your grace, your beauty, your kindness." Vanessa dabbed at her eyes with a monogrammed napkin. "And Calla," he added. The room stilled. "Calla is here today as well, and we're grateful for her contributions." A few awkward laughs floated through the air. Then he raised his glass. "In fact, I think Calla should say a few words." He looked directly at me. "Come up here, sweetheart. Give your sister a toast." And just like that, the microphone was waiting. The entire room turned toward me, 200 faces. I saw my mother first, her smile frozen, eyes sharp with warning. Don't make a scene. I saw Vanessa next. Triumph, barely masking fear. She thought she had already won, and then I saw the rest of them. Guests waiting for one of 2 things: an awkward, polite toast, or a dramatic refusal. I reached for my cane. Slowly, carefully, I stood. The walk to the front felt endless, each step deliberate, each face watching. My cane tapped against the polished floor. Tick, 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 like a countdown. I climbed the 2 small steps onto the platform. My father handed me the microphone, his smile tight and controlled. "Don't be long," he whispered. I turned toward the crowd. Crystal chandeliers above me, floral arrangements worth more than most people's rent, 200 guests dressed in their best, and a microphone in my hand. Vanessa was gripping Ethan's hand so tightly her knuckles had gone white. "Thank you, Dad," I began evenly. "You're right. I did contribute to this wedding." Silence spread across the tent. "Let me tell you exactly how much." 6 weeks ago, I said, keeping my voice steady. I underwent major spinal surgery, 9 hours on an operating table. A few sympathetic murmurs rippled through the crowd. While I was unconscious, while surgeons were operating on my spine, my parents made a decision. The murmuring faded. They sold my condo. Stillness. $568,000. 8 years of savings. My home. You could feel the air change. They forged my signature on a power of attorney and completed the sale without my knowledge or consent. My father stepped forward. "Calla, this isn't—" "Don't." I didn't raise my voice. but he stopped. You had your speech. This is mine. I opened my clutch and pulled out the envelope. I have the documentation, I said calmly. The forged signature, the fraudulent power of attorney, everything. Gasps echoed through the room. Guests began glancing at one another, confused, horrified. But that's not why I'm here, I continued. I met Vanessa's eyes. I'm not here to ruin your wedding. I'm here to give you a gift. I removed a second document. This is the deed to the house in Bellevue, the property held under Somerset Property Holdings, LLC, the house my parents have lived in for the last 20 years. My mother shot to her feet. What does that have to do with anything? In 2021, when you were about to lose that house to foreclosure, someone stepped in and purchased it. Silence. You believed a private investor saved you. I let the pause stretch. That investor was me. My mother's face drained of color. My father gripped the edge of the table so hard his knuckles whitened. I own your house, I said quietly. I've owned it for 4 years. I let that sink in. And your lease? I glanced at the document in my hand. Expires in exactly 30 days from today, if I choose to serve notice. The room exploded. Gasps, chairs scraping, whispers breaking into raised voices. And for the first time that night, Vanessa looked afraid. My father lunged toward me. You're lying. That's impossible. It's public record, I replied evenly. You're welcome to verify it. My mother was shaking now. How could you? Why would you do this to us? I saved your house because I loved you. I let the words settle. Even though you never loved me back. From the back of the tent, a man in a crisp gray suit stepped forward. Jonathan Reed, leather briefcase in hand. Who is that? My father demanded. My attorney. I stepped aside, allowing Jonathan to join me on the platform. He's here to confirm what I've said. Jonathan addressed the room with professional calm. My name is Jonathan Reed. I am a real estate attorney licensed in Washington State. I can confirm that Callum Monroe is the legal owner of the property in Bellevue, held under Somerset Property Holdings, LLC. He paused. I can also confirm that the power of attorney used in the sale of her Capitol Hill condominium was fraudulent. He let the weight of that word hang in the air. My client has grounds for criminal prosecution. The reception tent fell into absolute silence. Then Ethan stood up. Wait. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried. The money for this wedding, the $210,000 your family contributed. He turned slowly toward my mother. That came from Calla's condo, didn't it? Lorraine couldn't look at him. You paid for our wedding with stolen money? Ethan's voice rose now, raw and unfiltered. You told me it was savings, a family trust. Vanessa grabbed his arm. Ethan, baby, it's complicated. Complicated? He pulled away from her. Did you know? She opened her mouth, closed it. Her silence said everything. Ethan's parents stood. His mother, composed, elegant, controlled, looked at Vanessa with an expression colder than steel. We need to speak with you, she said. Now. The string quartet had stopped playing. Servers stood frozen mid-pour, champagne bottles tilted in the air. 200 guests watched the most expensive wedding they'd ever attended begin to collapse in real time. And I hadn't raised my voice once. Ethan stepped down from the platform. Vanessa stumbled after him, nearly tripping over the hem of her gown. Ethan, please, let me explain. He turned sharply. Explain what? That your family stole from your own sister to fund this? He gestured wildly toward the tent. The chandeliers, the towering cake, the champagne fountain. That you knew and said nothing? I didn't. I thought. You thought what? He demanded. That it was fine because she was unconscious? Vanessa started crying. Real tears this time. Mascara streaking down her cheeks. From the platform, I watched. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel satisfied. I felt tired. Ethan's mother approached Vanessa with the precision of a surgeon. "We need to discuss this privately," she said calmly. "Mrs. Caldwell, please, now." They disappeared into a side room. Ethan followed. The door shut with a final click. At the head table, my mother sat motionless, staring at nothing. My father paced like a caged animal, muttering about lawsuits and betrayal. Evelyn stepped beside me. "It's done," she said softly. "Not quite." I looked out at the crowd, shocked faces, hushed whispers, phones discreetly recording. Almost. I lifted the microphone one last time. "I want to be clear about something," I said. My voice was steady. "I didn't do this for revenge. I did this because the truth deserves to be told." I paused. "And because I deserve to be treated like a human being." For a split second, my voice almost broke. Almost. I placed the microphone back on the stand and stepped down. The crowd parted as I walked through them. No one stopped me. No one spoke. Outside, the cool Seattle air hit my face. It was over. Almost. If you think that's where the story ends, it's not. What happened after the wedding, what Ethan uncovered, changed everything. The next part is even more unexpected than this. What do you think Ethan did next? Let me finish the story. I didn't leave right away. I sat on a bench in the hotel garden, watching the sunset stain the sky orange and pink. Guests filtered out in small groups. Some left quickly. Others lingered, whispering. Bryce, the cousin who believed there were two sides, approached me first. He couldn't meet my eyes. "Calla, I didn't know. I'm sorry." I nodded. That was all he got. Great Aunt Eleanor, my father's aunt, gripped my hand firmly. "I always said Stephen didn't deserve you," she said. "Your grandmother would be proud." That one hurt. In a good way. But the person who surprised me most was Ethan's mother. Margaret Caldwell sat beside me, her navy suit still perfectly in place despite the chaos inside. "Calla," she said evenly, "I want you to know we had no idea." "I know. Ethan is devastated. He's questioning everything." "I'm sorry," I said. She studied me for a moment. "That wasn't your intention, was it?" "No." She nodded slowly. "I don't believe it was. You wanted the truth exposed." She stood, smoothing her jacket. "For what it's worth, I think you did the right thing. A marriage built on deception would never have survived." She walked away before I could respond. Inside the tent, I could hear raised voices. My father shouting, my mother sobbing. Vanessa eventually emerged from the side room, alone. Ethan wasn't with her. When she saw me sitting there, her face twisted with rage. She started toward me, then stopped, turned, walked back inside. Smart. The string quartet began playing again, an awkward attempt to restore normalcy. But nothing about that night was normal anymore. About an hour later, when most of the guests had gone, Ethan found me. His tuxedo was wrinkled now, his bow tie loosened, his eyes red. "Calla," he said, sitting heavily beside me. "I need to tell you something." "You don't owe me anything," I replied quietly. "No," Ethan said quietly. "I do owe you." He ran a hand through his hair, the composure gone. "I've been such an idiot." I didn't interrupt. 3 months ago, right after we got engaged, my laptop disappeared. I'd left it at Vanessa's apartment overnight. He let out a hollow laugh. She said there must have been a break-in, claimed someone broke in and only took my laptop. Nothing else? Nothing. What was on it? I asked. Financial records, my family's holdings, trust documents. He looked at me then, and I saw it. The realization settling in. At the time, I thought it was random, bad luck. But now, she was researching your family before you even proposed, I said softly. His jaw tightened. I think she targeted me. I think she learned about my family's assets and built the entire relationship around it. The chance meeting at that charity gala, the way she knew exactly what I liked, what I wanted to hear. His voice cracked. I think it was engineered. What do you say when someone realizes their marriage was a strategy? I'm sorry, I said finally. Don't be, he replied. You saved me. He stood. I've already spoken with my parents' attorney. We're filing for annulment on grounds of fraud. The marriage isn't even 12 hours old. And Vanessa? My family is demanding repayment of the $150,000 we contributed to the wedding. He hesitated. I don't think she has it. Then he walked back into the dim lights of the hotel. Vanessa had finally chosen someone who could fight back. The fallout was immediate. By Monday morning, the video of my speech had spread through our extended family like wildfire. Someone had recorded it on their phone. It ended up in a group chat, then online. Within days, it had thousands of views. My father's employer, a regional insurance firm, called him into a meeting. Stephen Monroe had been a mid-level manager for 32 years. Reliable, predictable. Now he was the man who forged his own daughter's signature. We're placing you on administrative leave pending an ethics review, they told him. 32 years didn't matter. Reputation did. My mother lost her circles almost overnight. The charity committee she chaired for 15 years quietly replaced her. Book club invitations stopped. The tennis group dissolved around her. And Vanessa? The few real followers among her 12,000 started disappearing. The bots remained. Bots don't have moral standards. Someone posted the wedding clip publicly. Imagine stealing from your sister during surgery. This is disgusting. She got exactly what she deserved. The annulment was granted quickly. The Caldwell family had exceptional attorneys. Vanessa was left with nothing. No husband, no money, no image. 1 week after the wedding, she took her first job in 6 years, retail associate at a department store. Minimum wage plus commission. I heard she cried when she told my mother. As for me, I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt empty. I never wanted any of this. All I ever wanted was to be seen, to matter. But some families only understand power. And now they finally understood who held it. 30 days after I served the notice, my phone rang. Stephen Monroe. I considered letting it go to voicemail. I answered. Calla. His voice sounded older, smaller. We need to talk about the house. What about it? The notice says we have to vacate. A pause. We don't have anywhere to go. I had served the notice the day after the wedding. Legal. Proper. 30 days. That isn't my problem, Dad. It is your problem, he snapped, the old anger flashing. You're evicting your own parents. What kind of daughter does that? The kind whose parents stole $568,000 from her. We didn't steal. You forged my signature while I was in surgery, I said evenly. That is the legal definition of theft and fraud. I let the silence stretch. You're fortunate I didn't press charges. He exhaled shakily. Please. The word sounded like it hurt. Just give us more time. A few months. No. Calla, you had 4 years, I said. 4 years living in a house I paid for. I saved you from foreclosure. You repaid me by selling my home. We didn't know it was you. Would that have changed anything? He didn't answer. We both knew. 30 days, Dad. Find somewhere else to live. If you do this, you're no longer my daughter. I almost laughed. I was never your daughter, I said quietly. I was the one you used when you needed something. I ended the call. My hands were steady, my heartbeat calm. It wasn't anger. It was a boundary. Some lines, once crossed, don't get redrawn. 2 months later, I walked through the Bellevue house after they'd moved out. They'd taken everything they could carry to a small apartment 30 minutes away. The house echoed, empty. I stood in the living room where the Christmas tree used to go. The window seat where I read as a child. The staircase I'd climbed thousands of times. Evelyn stood beside me. How do you feel? She asked. I ran my hand along the wall. I thought I'd feel something. Relief. Satisfaction. I swallowed. I just feel sad. She nodded gently. You didn't just lose your parents, she said. You lost the hope that they would ever love you the way you deserved. I turned away from the empty room, and for the first time in a long time, I stopped hoping. What are you going to do with the house? Evelyn asked quietly. Rent it, I said. I found a young couple, first-time renters, both public school teachers. I paused. The rent's going to a nonprofit, one that supports women who've experienced financial abuse within their families. Evelyn smiled at me. That's beautiful, Calla. By then, my recovery was almost complete. I could walk without the cane. The pain was manageable. My body was healing. My heart, slower. Vanessa texted me once, 2 weeks after the wedding. I hope you're happy. You destroyed everything. I didn't respond. Ethan sent a short email. Thank you for telling the truth. I know it cost you. I won't forget it. I saved that one. I locked the front door of the Bellevue house, my house, and walked to my car. The spring sun was warm. Birds moved through the maple tree above the driveway. Life, somehow, kept going. 3 months after the wedding, I ran into my mother. I had moved into a smaller apartment near Green Lake, temporary while they planned my next steps. The condo money was gone, but I still had my career, my savings, my dignity. She was sitting alone on a bench near the fountain. She looked smaller, more gray in her hair, less polish in her clothes. A simple cardigan instead of the structured blazers she used to wear. Our eyes met. For a long moment, neither of us moved. Then I walked over. I don't know why. Closure, maybe. Curiosity. Or that stubborn, fragile part of me that once hoped. I sat down, leaving space between us. I didn't expect to see you here, she said without looking at me. I live nearby. Silence settled between us. The fountain burbled. Children laughed somewhere behind us. Are you okay? She asked finally. She turned toward me then. Her eyes were tired, red-rimmed. I'm okay, Calla, she said. Her voice wavered. I never meant... I didn't want... I waited. Part of me wanted an apology, a real one, something that acknowledged the years of dismissal, the theft, the betrayal. But she just shook her head and looked away. You should head home, I said gently. It's getting cold. She nodded, stood, paused. I wish, she began. I know, I said. She didn't finish the sentence. She walked away slowly, disappearing around the bend in the path. I sat there for a long time. I didn't hate her. I didn't love her. I was just done. Some relationships can't be repaired. Some damage runs too deep. And accepting that is its own kind of peace. So that's my story. If you're waiting for a neat ending where we reconcile and rebuild into a perfect family, I'm sorry. That's not how this one ends. My parents still live in their small apartment. We don't speak. I hear updates from Evelyn occasionally, but I've stopped asking. Vanessa is still working retail. She's in therapy now, I'm told. I hope it helps. Not for who she was, but for who she might become. Ethan remarried 2 years later, a teacher from Connecticut. They have a baby now. He sent me a birth announcement. I thought that was kind. As for me, 2 years later, I bought another place. Smaller than my old condo, but it's mine. Every brick, every floorboard, every window. I earned it again. The cane I used after surgery still sits in my closet. I keep it as a reminder of how far I've come. Before I end this story, let me say this clearly. For years, I confused endurance with love. I believed being the strong one meant staying quiet, absorbing the hurt, fixing what I didn't break, paying for things I didn't owe. I thought if I worked hard enough, achieved enough, sacrificed enough, eventually I would be seen. I was wrong. Love without respect is manipulation. Family without accountability is control. And sacrifice that only flows one direction is not loyalty. It's exploitation. What they took from me wasn't just money. It was dignity. It was trust. It was the illusion that blood guarantees protection. The moment I stopped begging to be valued and started enforcing my boundaries, everything shifted. Not because I became cruel, but because I became clear. Setting boundaries is not revenge. It is self-respect with consequences. Walking away is not bitterness. It is courage without apology. If you are the one who always figures it out, the one who funds everyone else's chaos, the one who is praised for being independent but punished for needing nothing, hear me. You are allowed to protect what you built. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to choose peace over approval. And if that decision costs you people who only loved your usefulness, then they never loved you. And you can walk away, not in anger, but in peace. If my story resonated with you, if you've ever been the responsible one, the quiet provider, the one everyone depends on but no one protects, I see you. Have you ever had to set a boundary that changed everything? And if you believe that self-respect is stronger than guilt, stronger than pressure, stronger than blood, hit the like button so this message reaches someone who needs it. Boundaries and the quiet power of standing your ground. Because sometimes the strongest revenge is choosing yourself.